suspicious death of a 27-year-old Orlando woman. Sasha Samsudean's body was found Saturday night inside of her apartment at Uptown Place.
In October 2015, Sasha Samsudean from Orlando, Florida, came back to her apartment building after a night out with friends. She had been drinking and felt confused while trying to locate her apartment. Fortunately, the building had a security guard who appeared to be helpful and available around the clock. However, a few hours later, Samsudean was tragically found strangled in her bed. Diligent investigators who were looking into her death followed the trail of video evidence. From protector to predator, this is the unsettling story of the murder of Sasha Samsudean. Stay tuned so you don't miss out on this horrifying event. Sasha Samsudean was born in New York on July 4, 1988. She grew up in Orlando, Florida, and later graduated from the University of Florida. She worked for a real estate company called 407apartments.com, which focused on renting apartments in Orlando. On their website, you can still find a profile about her, where she's described as a local expert and playfully calls herself the Cupid of apartment hunting. In 2015, Samsudean lived at Uptown Place condominiums, located in Orlando's downtown entertainment area. This building was modern and safe, with security cameras watching around the clock and special codes for each apartment's door. Unfortunately, even with all these security measures, a terrible danger came from someone unexpected. During the early hours of October 17, 2015, Samsudean left a nightclub called Orlando's Attic by herself after spending time with some friends. Although she didn't return that night, a friend named Anthony Roper knew he was going to have breakfast with her the next morning. The next morning, Anthony Roper felt worried because Sasha Samsudean didn't come for their planned breakfast. Sasha was someone who used social media a lot, but she hadn't replied to any messages or phone calls. As the day went on, and they still couldn't reach her, Roper and two other friends decided to go to Sasha's place. Their worry grew when they saw a gift in her car that she was supposed to bring to a baby shower that day. Since Sasha lived by herself and didn't open the door, Roper called the police that evening to ask them to check on her well-being. When the police entered the apartment, they immediately noticed a strong smell of bleach. They found Sasha Samsudean's lifeless body in her bed, covered with her blanket, and she was only partly dressed. Her shirt and bra had been torn, and her pants and underwear were missing. Surprisingly, there were no signs of anyone breaking in. Sasha had been strangled, and the medical examiner confirmed that she had injuries on her head and marks on her upper and lower body, suggesting that someone had forcefully held her. Despite trying to clean everything with bleach, the person who did this left behind some clues. For instance, the toilet seat was up, which was unusual for a place where only a woman lived, according to William J., a prosecutor from the state's attorney's office, as reported by Oxygen. They found fingerprints under the toilet seat cover, and they also discovered partial shoe marks on the floor. When they collected samples from Sasha's chest and neck, they found DNA that didn't belong to her. Since the security camera footage wasn't immediately available, the investigators talked to the security guard who was on duty that night, Stephen Duxbury. He said he had talked to Sasha Samsudean and two other women when they were at the building's entrance. But Sasha didn't have her ID or key card, so he couldn't let her in. Later, when another person who lived there arrived, Sasha followed him inside. Duxbury said he last saw Sasha struggling with the security code near her apartment. The investigators found the two women who had brought Sasha home that night. They explained that they were in an Uber when they saw Sasha, who seemed drunk, walking on the street. They were worried about her safety, so they invited her into the car and took her back to her building. Once Sasha got inside, the women left, thinking she would be safe with the security guard on duty that night. The person Sasha followed into the building that night was identified using the digital records of the building's key usage. This person was cleared of any suspicion after giving a DNA sample and telling investigators that Sasha seemed very drunk. Later, a neighbor from upstairs said she had seen Sasha in the hallway that night and she noticed a security guard following her. When the investigators checked the building's security video, they saw that the security guard, Duxbury, was acting strangely, which was different from what he had first told them. Sasha seemed unsteady, like she might have been drunk, and she was by herself. Later, she's seen running, but there's a problem with the first recording, so she disappears from view. About 6 seconds later, Sasha shows up on the video again, but this time she's with 2 women. The police share pictures of Sasha and the 2 women to see if anyone recognizes them. 2 women come forward and say they helped Sasha. They explain that she was walking alone and they noticed some guys trying to talk to her, so they were worried. Since she didn't have her ID or phone, they offered to share their Uber ride with her. But when they got to her apartment building, she suddenly got out of the car and they didn't see her again. At 1:46 a.m., Sasha is shown heading to her apartment. Another man who lived there and was concerned asked her if she was okay, and she said yes. This man doesn't appear again in the recordings, so he's not considered involved. 6 a.m., and she's running again. The footage from inside her apartment has sound, so you can hear her shoes making noise as she moves. Then at 2:25 a.m., Sasha appears on the video, but she's not alone. The security guard, Stephen Duxbury, is with her. They're seen going back and forth between her apartment and the garage, just like he had told the police. At this point, his story seems to match the evidence. For almost 40 minutes, Duxbury moves around the same areas as Sasha, using his own key to open closed doors. Behind his appearance as a professional security guard, Duxbury sees a chance with Sasha, who is intoxicated and in a vulnerable state. He knows that the hallways in the common areas of the building are not monitored by cameras. At 6:36 a.m., Duxbury is seen on camera wearing his security guard uniform. He's carrying white garbage bags with red handles out of a doorway that leads to the second-floor garage where his car was parked. A minute or two later, he goes back into the building without the bags. This is different from what he originally told investigators, as he had claimed he left work at 6 a.m. It's important to note that taking out the garbage wasn't part of his duties as a security guard at Uptown Place. Interestingly, the same type of bags were found in Sasha Samsudean's apartment. As evidence started to pile up, pointing toward Duxbury, investigators got a search warrant for his home and phone. On October 17th, around 5 a.m., they discovered that Duxbury had used his smartphone's browser to search for ways to bypass a type of lock called Quickset Digital Lock. Coincidentally, this was the exact type of lock on Sasha Samsudean's front door. During a 90-minute period, there was no security video or records of Duxbury doing his security duties. Duxbury's fingerprints, which he had given as part of his job requirement as a security guard, were found on the edge of Sasha Samsudean's toilet seat and a thumbprint on her nightstand. The police also talked to 2 of Sasha's former boyfriends because strangling is often connected to strong emotions. The first guy, Taylor, works as a bartender. He told them that he and Sasha weren't in an exclusive relationship, but they still talked. He said he was working at the bar until 9:30 p.m. on that Friday night. He let them take a DNA sample from him, but the test showed he wasn't involved. The second person they spoke to was Ben. He became a suspect because Sasha sent him a text at 5:12 a.m., which was her last message. The text just said, "Ben." He mentioned that he and Sasha had dated briefly and had plans to hang out that weekend, but they didn't. Ben explained he was at a friend's house the entire Friday night and didn't leave. His DNA didn't match either, so he was ruled out. The last person they looked into was Stephen Duxbury. He told them he finished work at 6 a.m., but he was caught on camera at the apartments at 6:36 a.m. He was seen carrying white garbage bags with red handles, the same type found in Sasha's apartment. The police learned that taking out trash wasn't part of Stephen's job, which made it strange that he had those bags. His job was only to report if residents didn't bring their trash back inside. They asked Stephen to take a lie detector test. When he was asked if he was in Sasha's apartment and if she was strangled, the needle on the machine reacted strangely. This was weird because the public didn't yet know that Sasha had been strangled. Stephen's DNA matched the foreign DNA found on Sasha and on the toilet seat. Plus, the police discovered that he had searched on his phone for how to defeat a digital lock, which were the kind of locks on the apartment doors. Additionally, the patterns on the soles of the boots Duxbury had worn seemed to match the shoe prints found in Sasha's apartment. When Duxbury took a lie detector test, his responses about Sasha's murder were found to be untrue. He falsely claimed that he had never been inside Sasha's apartment or entered it in any way.
Well, Stephen Duxbury was a security guard here at the Uptown Place Apartments, Lisa, and Orlando police investigators say his story just didn't add up at all. Add to that he had scrapes and even a bite mark on his arm. It took some close attention to detail until Orlando police gathered enough evidence to arrest him and charge him with first-degree murder.
Stephen Duxbury was arrested on October 30th, 2015, and faced charges of first-degree murder, attempted sexual battery, and burglary. After a trial that lasted 6 days, Duxbury was found guilty on all counts on November 21st, 2017. He was given 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole for killing Samsudean, and he received an additional 15-year sentence for the burglary. Following this, Samsudean's parents filed a lawsuit against the building, the security company, and the lock manufacturer. Duxbury had been hired by Vital Security in 2015, and even though he had passed a background check conducted by the state FBI, he had received many complaints from residents of Uptown Place.
As a security guard, he used his access to prey on someone who was very vulnerable.
Disturbingly, in May 2015, a young woman who lived there had expressed concerns about Duxbury's behavior. She felt uneasy when he followed her to her apartment, as reported by Click Orlando. The lawsuit placed blame on the absence of security cameras in the shared hallways. This lack of cameras allowed Duxbury the chance to enter Samsudean's apartment while she was asleep, without being noticed or stopped.